What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Vanguard Project podcast. My name is Austin Jardine. Happy freaking Monday. I apologize if I'm a little nasally. I am in the middle of a mild head cold and been drugging up, hoping that I don't fall totally sick. But you know what? It's Monday. I had an awesome weekend hanging out with some friends. My cousin came down with her husband and went to a concert, went out and danced a little bit with some friends, and had an overall hell of a good time. Even got up bright and early after a late night dancing and went and looked for ducks and dogs. Didn't see, saw a couple of ducks and found one solid spot that I'm hoping to get back to in the near future to find some coyotes. So it was a really good weekend. I sat down and relaxed today for the first time in a while, where I kind of just did a whole hell of a lot of nothing, and it felt right and it felt good, because normally I don't sit still. But you know what? I'm excited. Today's episode with Caleb is spectacular. I met him earlier this summer at one of the Eberlestock networking events, and he is an absolute legend. Kind of the time that we met, I was going through, a fair chunk of things, and he was a very he's an awesome guy, just in that he stops, listens, very philosophical, makes you think, and honestly, even in thinking about some tough things, makes you want to go work towards something better. So I was really fortunate, really thankful to have spent some time with him and got this recording out. So I'm super stoked. If you haven't yet, please take a half a second to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, right? Whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Subscribe to stay up to date. Leave a rating, a review, and hit up the website too. I actually recently posted my first blog post in quite a while. I sat down and I'd been reflecting the past couple of weeks just on how life has been going, and it's been fun because I've kind of sat and been like, how the hell did I get here? And it was kind of fun to sit down and kind of take a few things that I had learned and put it into words in some way, shape, or form. But, without further ado, I don't want to take away from Caleb's episode because he's a stud. Today's episode is brought to you by Eberlestock. Go figure. That's where Caleb and I met, through those guys. And speaking about hunting and looking for both ducks and dogs, right, it was cold. Actually, it usually gets real cold out here in Utah in the mornings. I've noticed that. That's one thing I'm learning, is that if you get out before the sun, obviously it's December, it's cold, whatever. I mean, that's kind of no duh. However, my Thunderbolt parka from Eberlestock is like my go-to jacket. I love this thing because it'll fit underneath my bibs, which is great, or my waders while we're out. But then it's also just comfortable enough where if I throw a sweatshirt on underneath it, I can sit out waiting for dogs for forever and be just as comfortable. The only thing I'm really worried about are my toes getting cold because I'm kind of a baby. So, I know Christmas is coming up. If you're fixing for some cold weather gear, call Eberlestock, call the retail store, ask for Tucker, let him know the Vanguard Project sent you, and get hooked up with some new gear, whether that is a mainframe for next hunting season, or maybe you're going to get after spring bear, or if you need some more camo stuff, or if you just need an EDC pack, they have the gamut of things. So I'm going to stop yammering because I'm starting to get a little nasally, but I hope you all have a wonderful week, and we're going to roll an awesome episode with Mr. Caleb Stillians. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Vanguard Project podcast. My name is Austin Jardine, and with me today is a dude who I'm actually pretty excited to chat with. You and I met this last summer in person at the Eberlestock event, and that would be Mr. Caleb Stillians. And it's kind of fun because you and I sat down. At the time, I was going through a bit of a situation, and it was kind of fun to talk to you because, I haven't told you this, but it's really fun because you are a very philosophical, kind of introspective person, and I'm really excited to talk with you because I feel like there's a lot for me to learn in this conversation. I know that I didn't share that with you, but that's kind of my impression of you. So I'm excited to chat with you. So I don't want to take your intro away, man, but if you don't mind kind of just introducing yourself in whatever format you're comfortable with, and we'll get to know you a little bit more.
Absolutely. It's good to be here, and everyone that's listening and watching this, I appreciate you guys having me on. And so my background is Kansas City, Missouri at age 2 to Alaska at age 8, back to Missouri, and at age 18 back to Alaska. And when I went back the last time to Alaska, I started a guiding journey up there where I became a professional hunting guide. And before that, I shot some competitive archery. So I've kind of bounced around. I've done a lot of things, and I've been fortunate to have a lot of success and a lot of failure. And yeah, we met at the Eberlestock event, and we hit it off, and it was a good chat. So I guess that's why I'm here now.
That's awesome. So Missouri to Alaska to Missouri to Alaska. Why Alaska?
So my dad wanted to go up there. There was a Bible college, and my parents are very like faith based, and he felt like God was calling him up to that area of Alaska. It's middle of nowhere. It's a town called Glen Allen, tiny town. Nothing's going on there, and that's where my love for the mountains, I guess, developed from a young age. Because then when we moved back here, Missouri is great. The people are phenomenal, and it's got its own unique beauty, but it's not the same as you have these huge mountains and you can walk for as long as you want to and not bump into anybody. So in Missouri does not have that. So that I had the itch to go back. So as soon as I was done with high school, I kind of made that happen.
Yeah, can we talk about kind of the appreciation and that itch, right? Like I can understand to a certain extent the itch to want to go do a particular thing, but to the extent that you have in shaping your life around it, right? In terms of actually moving back and foregoing college, for instance, or maybe Bible college, depending on if that's what your dad did too, right? I mean, how did that shape you? Why did you decide? And how did you decide to scratch the itch and pursue going back to Alaska?
Yeah, so it's weird because none of my family hunts, like none of my family. My dad doesn't, no one. But it's always been something that like itched me. I remember being a little kid and we were walking in Costco, and all I wanted, I think it was Costco, all I wanted is this toy bow and arrow. And I was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 at the time. And I still remember like begging my mom and dad, can I please have the bow and arrow? I'll walk for it, whatever I need to do. And I got it. And that was my thing. I would shoot it. And my mom and dad had this little gun rack, even though too later in life, he didn't even have a gun. He had a pellet gun at that point. Later on, he gets a 301 mag. But I would run downstairs to their bedroom, do a somersault, grab my little bow and arrow with the things, and just shoot that gun rack that had that whitetail buck on it. And so that I don't know where it came from exactly, but that feeling of like wanting to do that was there since I can remember, even though no one in my family did that. And the funny story is when I was 6 or 7, my older brother and sister were going on a caribou hunt to help this neighbor out to help pack out the meat. And I remember how pissed I was at my family that they wouldn't let me go when I was a kid. I was so, I can't, that was probably the maddest I've been ever in my life was when I was doing that. But so that, so I don't know where that feeling came from on like the love for the mountains. It's just anybody that's been up to Alaska or been in the mountains, they just know what it feels like to be around that presence, and then to move at a young age and not have that anymore. The Midwest is pretty flat. You have the Ozarks, but it's not the same. It's still beautiful, but it's not the same. So I think having that calling to be back out in a place that's still wild was there. And then when it comes to what I did, I shot competitive archery in high school, and I was fortunate to do really well at it. And I won a full ride for college, so I ended up going and I studied finance. So I didn't do the same path that my dad did. I was I don't want to sound like a whiner because I'm not. I'm grateful for how I grew up. I had everything that I needed, but my parents didn't have a lot of money. They lived very paycheck to paycheck slash stressed out. We're gonna be short this month. So money's always been a big motivator because I know I don't want that for myself. So like I'm gonna study finance. I'm gonna try to understand money the best as I can so I can take that. And that's been a driver in my life as well. So I studied finance in college. When COVID happened, I actually dropped out because I was like, this is BS. And by then I started the guiding path. So I've met several successful businessmen that have kind of took me under their wing. So I kind of listen to them when it comes to business.
Interesting. So I'm hearing a couple things and I'm taking some mental notes. So
Mm-hmm.
you started in high school, competitive archery.
Mm-hmm.
Money was a big motivator, so you studied finance. But in the COVID years, you dropped out and started guiding. There's a lot of things going on there. And I'm going to start with what, other than pretending to be Robin Hood, rolling down the stairs and shooting uh, the mount, how did you get into competitive shooting and archery?
Yep. So when we moved to Missouri, when that happened, I wanted to hunt. So it took forever. I talked to my mom. I worked for an Amish guy. I got my first 22, and this is when I'm like 10 or 11. And then I get a bow after that. And while all that's going on, I'm shooting my little bows and arrows, and then I get an actual bow. It was a diamond bow. I don't even know if that exists
Mm-hmm.
anymore, but
Yep.
I know it's real funky. Shot that, got really good. I mean, because I've shot my whole life, and then I was at a event called Chief Shikoxi Days in Missouri, and this guy comes up and starts talking to me. Yeah, they run the archery program. It's called NASP, National In School Archery Program. They're at the high school, and I was like, nah, I'm good. I because at that time I was homeschooled. I went and got a job, was working, making money. And so that's what I was doing. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'll come up and try it, but I don't want to go to school because I got a job and I want to make money. So went up, and it wasn't able to compete since I wasn't in high school. They're like, hey, you can't shoot on a school sport if you're not in the school, which makes sense. So I didn't do it that year, and that would have been sophomore year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then throughout that, I ended up going, and I wanted to be a Navy SEAL at that time. And I found out that I needed a high school diploma. And if I got my GED, I would have to go and get a certain amount of like college credit hours. But to get into college, I need to go get a high school diploma. So it was kind of like everything was leading me to go to high school. So I did that junior and senior year. And that's when I started shooting competitively. And that's how that all pieced together.
Interesting. So would you say then, and this is kind of a funny question, would you say then that archery is the reason you finished high school?
I would say what got me into high school was the motivation that I wanted to be a Navy SEAL.
Okay.
And then archery was something that was there that I was naturally really good at. Like I'm not saying this boastfully, but picked it up, broke the state records, won state the 2 years I did it, went to nationals, placed really well in nationals, went to ward, and then I don't know if anybody's broke it, but me and a couple other people are tied with the 299 out of 300, so close to a perfect score. And that's what pushed me to college, because at the point in time I just wanted to go get my diploma, go straight into the SEALs. And now I'm like, well, I got college paid for, so it's like I
Mm-hmm.
might as well go see what that's about. So that's kind of how that happened.
What is an archery tournament competition? I mean, I've done one 3D shoot, but I don't think that that's necessarily the same thing that we're talking about here, right?
Yeah, so NASP is how they do it is everyone has to shoot the exact same bow. It's honestly a kid's bow. It's a Matthews Genesis.
Okay.
So it's like, let's just say 12 to 25 pounds. I don't remember the specs on it anymore. And you'd shoot at 10 and 15 meters for bullseye. So you have an X ring, and then you have a 10 ring, and it goes out from there, etc. And then you have a 3D, and it's the same thing. It's I think 7 different animals, and then you have you're 10, you're 9, you're 8, and then you're 5. And then you go, and there's that two categories. So if anybody's interested in NASP, I would recommend putting your kids in it if that school offers it, if they like archery, because if they do take the time to get really good at it, you can pay for college if they got to devote their time to become the best at it. But if they do that, it's a good option for people that like the outdoors to look at.
Yeah. So, kind of maybe as a transitioning question, in the time that you made it through high school, started looking at the SEALs, and then continued through your competition stuff, right, with
Mm-hmm.
archery, what were some of the most important life lessons or things that you learned up until that point, right? Until, let's just say, graduation, starting college, where you're
Mm-hmm.
like, man, I never thought I would have learned this. I wish I would have known this 2 years ago. Or something that you're like, as a high school student or a parent that is sending a kid into high school, you're like, hey, I suggest researching this or knowing this.
Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna fix the timeline just a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because while I was going to college, I was also guiding, and
Okay,
I can get into how I did that as we go on. But to
sure.
answer that question there, I have dyslexia, so I can't sound out words. I just can't do it. And I used to be super ashamed about it. And I think if you're a kid that struggles with something that people think that makes you different, uh, don't don't let that be like your defining characteristic. Don't be ashamed of that. Understand your weaknesses and your strengths and attack what you're good at, and know that there's these things that you're bad at and you want to try to improve on it. But this, you can't be good at everything. And I think school promotes that you have to be good at everything. You have to get an A across the board. Well, the fact is, you should, if you can, you should try to get an A across the board. But this, because you're not passionate about, let's say science, doesn't mean that you should feel bad. Like, you should figure out what you're really good at and develop those skills of your natural gifts. So I think that's a big one. Another one is don't give in to peer pressure. I think being homeschooled, and then having most of my friends are older than me, because I mean, time I went into high school, I started walking at like age 10, which most people don't believe me, but it's like I did, so that's what happened. So time I got down to high school, I already had 10 years of walk experience,
Yeah.
ballpark range. So being able to understand that you are different, and that's okay, and you don't need to conform to what the group says you should do. It's just like, no, that's not me. So finding your self-identity as fast as possible and being okay with that. You don't need to conform to what these people are doing. They might want to go watch TikTok for 8 hours a day, but that doesn't mean that's what's cool and that's what you should do. You should find out
Yeah.
what makes you happy.
So you're bringing up a really good point and something I think that is very difficult to talk about. And it is one, being able to handle something that you're ashamed with, right? I mean, I've got my own things too, but then also being able to identify your own self, right? And exactly what your point, right? You could do it. Is that the right thing? Maybe not for you. How did you, and this is probably a very hard, loaded, difficult question. How
Mm-hmm.
did you do that for yourself? And I'm asking so that if somebody is like, holy crap, Caleb, you're right, I need to be thinking for myself, what did you do?
Yeah, so I think what I did is just you need to read a lot so then you can understand or listen. That's a great thing. You listen to a lot of things. So then it starts, because I think a lot of these things came naturally because of the hard work I had to do at a young age, but they weren't conscious. So as soon as you can, you need to start like reading great people from the past. You can read Marcus Aurelius. You can read the Bible. You can read, say, people from today, Jocko Willink, Jordan Peterson, and they articulate themselves in such a way where you can start to realize these different ideas. Because as soon as you can understand human nature, then you start to have a different outlook, because you realize that most people think about the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So to put an example, when I was younger, I was scared to talk to girls. And then at one point in time, I had an epiphany that everyone's just as scared as you are. We all this people going through the same thing. That girl might be a 10 and beautiful, but she's got the same insecurities like everyone else does. So once you understand that we all people, we all have human nature, there is some outliers like that are sociopaths and such, and you just gotta teach yourself to watch out for those people. But the majority of people experience the same emotions, and I think getting that one piece down is probably one of the biggest pieces that you can pick, is that we are all the same. We all put our pants on one leg at a time. No, so I'm blessed. Some of the people I take hunting are billionaires. And what was epiphany on doing that is that they are just like me and you. They had a great idea and they were able to follow through with it. And the market was right. Everything was right to make them boom, blow up. They're very smart. They quick at learning, but they're not any different than us. So understanding that is huge. Is that we're all the same, and it's all about finding what we're good at, following through, and being persistent. And we're all not gonna. Life's not fair on everything. It's called the Pareto distribution. Skills, money, etc. It's not gonna all be divided up equally. So you might have a really good idea and you might follow through and say that only makes you $50,000. Well, you shouldn't compare that. Oh, why didn't I get this because of this person got that? You should be realize that this is what you did and this is what you got. And if you want to get something different, now you need to do something different. And
Yeah.
I know that's kind of off a rabbit trail, but that's just kind of where my mind was taking me on how to answer that question.
No, that's fair. And I love that answer, right? And one thing that you said, and it's funny, like I don't like to say this, but like resonated with me was that we are all scared too, because I've learned that very recently. I'd say in the past couple of months, specifically last week, where it's like it kind of just hit where it's like we're all just people and everybody's scared. So you know what? You're gonna die. Take advantage of living, right? Take the situation and make it what you want it to be.
And B, you start to get yourself used to rejection, because rejection is part of success. There's no success without a level of rejection that goes along with that, because not everyone's going to say yes, and you shouldn't be afraid of no, because no's gets you one step closer to the next yes. I worked a sales job my freshman year of college, and his name is Jordan Petty's great guy. He took me under his wing and was like, you got to think of it like this. You like coffee, right? I'm like, yeah, I love coffee. Just fill all the coffee mugs up and I'm going to drink them all. He's like, okay, so you are the waiter and you have the coffee and you go to give someone coffee and they say, no, I don't want any. Is that hurting you? Or are they the one missing out on a good thing? They're the one missing out on a good thing. So you shouldn't take that personally. You should go find someone that wants some of your coffee. So
That's a good analogy. I was thinking about that. I also really like coffee, and I was like, coffee sounds good. Okay.
Coffee's great.
So, in terms of the storyline, then, you make it through high school, you opt out of going into the Navy, right? Now, was that a conscious decision? Was there a circumstance that led you away from it?
Yeah, so it was I'd say a conglomerate of things.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't want to push my religious beliefs on anybody, but one of the big ones was New York passed an abortion law where people could get abortions on the night, like the last trimester, up until the baby was born, and that's something I personally, well, I mean, that's something I don't agree with. Like, I'm not going to be politically correct at this point. I don't agree with that. And I love this country and I will fight for it and I'll fight for it under my own will. But, and some of my friends, like a lot of my friends are special forces guys. So I'm not dogging the military at all. But for me, that was when I started looking at that wasn't something that I was like, I'm not willing, because you can't say no in a way. You can't tell the way up or up, excuse my French, fuck you, I'm not doing that. And I'm a very kind of I do what I want individual
You're a
on the
very
most part.
fuck you person.
Exactly. So I was like, that's kind of the thing that led me away from that, is I'm very like, I'm not gonna do anything that I don't believe in. And when I say that, I really do mean that. So that I was like, I don't want to sign myself up for that at this time in my life.
No, that's fair. I feel like that's a very being that young, right? I feel like that's a very unique thing to be able to do, let alone articulate, you know?
Yeah, no, and I don't know if I could articulate it as well back then, but I've thought about it because I've also thought about going back and doing it, because it is something that is very attractive to me. Being around a team of people that are just as driven as you sounds phenomenal, because it's hard to find that in normal life. And you can find those people, but one's in Montana, one's in Florida, one's in Utah. Like, you're all spread out. It's not like you're in one place with those people. So the guys that get to experience that, that's phenomenal. So thinking about it, thinking about going back and having to re-dig that up and decide, hey, am I going to make the same choice or am I going to go back? I think has helped me be able to understand it a little bit better.
Yeah. So have you been able to find, and I know you alluded to it a little bit, but have you been able to find that sense of camaraderie in your current line of work or some other, I guess, passion play, however you want to call it?
Not in one spot. You got to seek those people out. There's a lot of people that they don't have to be military. It's just, I call it this hard mindset. They care about people, but yet they killers is what they are. It's like whatever they wouldn't give up. Period. Like they're the guys that caused the revolution that caused this country. If you look at that history, it was only a small percentage of people that started the revolution. Most of the people are like, no, we don't want to piss off the big government. Let's not do it. That small percentage is what created this country. And that small percentage is still out there. Mm-hmm. Again, human nature is human nature. Most people are sheep. And not that I don't want to be a sheep, but we need, it's kind of like the Chris Kyle movie. There's sheep, there's wolves, there's sheep dogs. People that are sheep, it's not like they're evil people. They are who they are. And those people that are sheep dogs that know exactly what they believe in and are willing to fight and die no matter what to protect those morals. And then those evil people, which are the wolves. And that's, I think you got to pick where you are on that spectrum. So yes, you can. There's sheepdogs everywhere, and I tend to enjoy hanging around them more than the sheep. The sheep are great people, nothing against them, but it's harder to find common ground.
Yeah, that's fair. So then, as kind of the story progresses, what led you down the path of guiding and ultimately back into Alaska?
Yep. So I went out to Tennessee for my freshman year of college. The assistant archery coach, their daughter had married an outfitter up in Alaska, and rewind back when I was 16 or 17, I drove my 97 Cavalier 4-bangle to Colorado, and I was climbing, I think it was Mount Massive, and I seen a mountain goat way off in the distance, so I snuck up on it, took a selfie, because why not? And I kept that photo, and I showed that to my assistant archery coach, and they sent it to the outfitter, and the outfitter was like, hey, you want to come walk for free? I'm like, in Alaska? Why not? So I went up there and walked for free for the first year as a packer, and that's how I got my guide license.
How did you sneak up on a goat? What was your secret? What was your secret?
The principles of hunting, like, are the same across the board. Don't let them see you, smell you, or hear you. And that's a lot. As you are doing a spot and stock, you have to be thinking about those three things constantly. What is the wind doing? Where is my scent cone going? Can they see? If I can see them, they can see me. So you don't need to see that animal the entire time as you stock up on it. If you think that, you're not going to get very successful in stalking. You need to know where that animal is and know where to disappear, and then you can pick points if the geographical location allows you to pop up and relocate that animal to make sure it's moved. But the majority of that stalk, you don't want to see that animal because that animal can see you. You want to know where that animal is. So that's how I snuck up on it, is just knowing the wind and not letting them see me or hear me. So.
Now, where did you learn all of these things, right? I mean, you said you didn't grow up hunting, which means either you failed a bunch or you spent a lot of time researching, and or both.
I failed a bunch.
Yeah.
I failed so much. I think it was probably 3 to 4 years hunting with a bow before I ever killed anything. And I heard so many times hunting whitetail. And then as that went along, it's good. Anything in life, you can research a lot, but that's only going to get you so good. Eventually, you have to go out and try it and fail often enough where you get sick of it and you start to adjust. Okay, what did I do there? How do I need to change that? So I started hunting by myself at a very young age, and I didn't have anyone teach me. So I failed for 3 years straight, didn't kill anything. And then I compiled that knowledge, and then, hey, I killed a doe this year. And then I started killing bucks, and it just, life is a progression. You got to get that 10,000 hours in anything that you do if you want to become really good at it.
So what is, and I know a little bit about guiding. I've never used a guide service. I've chat with you a little bit and a couple others. What is it? What does it look like in the day in the life of a guide? And then how do you source guides, become an expert? I guess, how do you become you is what I'm asking.
Yeah. So if you were like a kid sitting on the couch listening to this and you're like, I want to do that job, being a guide. In Alaska, it's different than other states. Alaska's the hardest state to get a guide's license in. So what you would have to do is you would go and you would find an outfitter that needs a quote unquote packer slash apprentice, whatever you want to call it. And you have to work for him for a minimum of 60 days, 2 guiding seasons in the field. So it could be a spring and a fall. So if you already have a lot of the skills and pick it up super fast, you can get it done in a year. Most of the time, it takes 2 to 4 years to get your assistant guide's license, depending on your knowledge base. So once you get the requirements, the days in the field, etc., the outfitter, if he thinks you are ready, will sign off on your paperwork. You take that to the state. You send that into the Big Game Commercial Services Board. They send you your guide's license. From there, you are not an outfitter, you are a guide. So you can't book hunts and take hunts, but you can work for an outfitter. Once you have that license for 3 years, if you choose to, you can go apply to be an outfitter. And then at that point, there is a written test and a practical test. And you got to pass those. And once you pass those, you can take what's called a GMU test. And that GMU test is game area use, whatever that stands for. The area you can hunt in. So you can go test on that. And each area you test for, you have to have said days in that area to be able to test for that. And that's how you go about becoming a guide in Alaska. So
That's a lot of testing.
it is, and a lot of time.
Yeah.
Like, it's a college degree to become a good guide.
So it's obviously experience, time under your belt, and skills, right? What then was maybe the most rewarding thing for you in becoming a guide, whether that's an experience, a skill, in individual you met, right? Most rewarding. I have like 2 or 3 questions that I made me think of.
Yeah, so I think it's the people that I've met. So I kind of alluded to, I come from a lower class background, and again, that's not bad. I'm grateful for my childhood. And I knew that wasn't what I wanted, but all my connections were in that same realm, lower to lower middle class. Well, then I work my butt off and I'm in this position, in this job. And now all of a sudden I'm taking guys that are worth several $1,000,000, if not more. And so being able to make friends with people that in a day-to-day life, it would take a lot to get a meeting with them. Well, now I get to spend 10 days with them, pick their brain on how they built their business, how they got the success, etc. So I think that was the most rewarding / beneficial for me personally on just doing hard things and overcoming them, and knowing that because when you're out in Alaska, so I'll tell a story. I'm running this bear bait up in Fairbanks area, and I have to go up by this river, and I'm 19 years old, and this is honestly a 2 to 3 man job, and I'm doing it by myself without that much experience, but that's what I'm supposed to do. So I have to run up this river, cut out log jams, cut out overhang logs, because no one's been up there since winter. So I'm trying to operate a boat, fight against the current, fell a lot of trees to get up that river. It was honestly dangerous. I shouldn't have been up there by myself, but I was. and figuring out how to get that done. And I almost died probably quite a few like at least 7 different times I can think of that summer. So I mean, God was protecting me. Here's one story. So I'm cutting out this log jam. I got the river's coming through like this, and if anybody's ever been in a log jam, they kind of understand how it operates. You have the river, it's backed up, and then you have the log jam, and then the water flows underneath it, and you have some water coming off to the side like this. And I'm having to cut a pathway through that. So I'm walking on the backside, cutting through, and I'm about midway through that log jam to get this little path through. And I have the bow. The bow is kind of bumped up against this one log that's at an angle, and it's kind of half in the water. And knowing what I know now, I would have been able to handle that situation way better. But again, I'm 19 and I don't know shit. So kind of how I set everything up wasn't the best idea, because there was another log that was kind of pinched underneath that. So when I cut this log, that log's gonna release, but I don't know that log's even there because I don't understand all the moving parts. So I got one leg on the boat and one leg around this other log that kind of keep the boat from drifting off. And I have the boat probably about 30 to 40% powered up to kind of keep up with the current that's pushing against me. And I'm cutting this log. As this log releases, the log that's underneath it bucks up, hits the bow. I end up falling into the water, which the water is pulling down, and the boat is I'm no longer attached to the boat, so it's off. How I should have done it, I should have tied everything up, roped it off, etc. And there should have been 2 guys there minimum. But I remember going under the water, and it's so weird because I mean I wasn't like out of it, but I remember going under the water and like watching myself do it. It was just the wildest thing, and I just my head goes under and I can see the light fading, and I just remember kicking as hard as I can and doing this number, and my foot hit another log that was underneath there, and I popped up, and these 2 fingers right here caught the front cleat of that riverboat, and I was able to grab onto that and then get my other hand up on it. As I'm trying to pull myself up, the boat bumps something, and I smack my head up against it. Again, I was just like, it probably should have knocked me out, but it didn't, and I was able to pull myself up back up into that boat, and I had hip waders on, so that they were filled up when I fell in. It was all these pieces that should have killed me, and I should have drowned, but I didn't. So it's getting through all that stuff, and I'm not recommending anybody to put themselves in that situation. I'm not, but facing those hard things and just getting through them, like figuring out a way. Now, don't be stupid. Anybody listening to this podcast, if you are pushing your limits in a place that can kill you super easily, don't do that. I've just always been kind of dumb, and like I'm gonna do it. So
if you're gonna be dumb, you got to be tough.
I guess.
So that sounds like a nightmare. What would you say then has been the hardest and or most dangerous / death-defying thing you've done?
I don't know. There's a lot of mixed things in there. So aviation, there's always something when the weather goes bad. There's been a lot of close calls with aviation where the clouds fill up and you lose your visibility, and it's pretty turbulent. So there's been quite a few close calls with that. The ocean is pretty angry when you're out in like a small skiff, or I've even taken a 76-footer boat from Kodiak around. So you have Kodiak, you have the Alaska Peninsula, and you have Kupanoff Strait that runs in between that. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the most dangerous spots that I in Alaska. So I'm assuming the world. You can, I don't know, people that are Google notes can go fact check me on that. But a lot of boats sink there, and that's the point. And I took a boat through there, and the ocean got nasty. And I remember I'm in this big boat. You have like the captain's helm, and then you have above that the crow's nest, and that thing sticks up really far. And being in swells where you kind of got to angle your boat, because if you sideways, the swells could tip you. So you angling into them and going in the bottom of the swell and seeing the next swell, and that it's way higher than you. and then coming up, and then every now and then you hit a swell where your bow's up, and then you come down on the next one and smack real hard, and that water breaching over the crow's nest. That was a pretty scary situation. Kind of like in the boat's doing this, you're like, we'll see how this ends up. And then there's always there's always bear encounters that are fun. Had a few of them try to eat me, but those, it's funny. Those are not quite as scary, I guess, because I'm armed and I've put in a decent amount of training to be good at shooting and accurate at it and proficient. So it's like a bear's coming at me. I know I can put rounds into that animal. The ocean's gonna take you if she wants.
Yeah.
You can't shoot the ocean in the head. So that's ocean and aviation is probably the most dangerous when it comes down to it. If something really bad happens.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the water. Not if that gives me like I'm like sweating thinking about that.
The add to it up there, you fall in, hypothermia is gonna hit you in 5 minutes,
Oh,
and you're
like
gonna be
that.
dead. Yeah,
Yeah.
so you can see the shore, but you're not making it there. You're gonna freeze it up. The water temperature is like 38. The 40 in the summertime, and the wintertime it hovers beneath that.
Yeah. So given all of these crazy experiences, skills, tests, traveling, flying, almost dying, what's been like the one skill that you've learned that has been the most random or the most helpful? It's kind of a weird question, but I was thinking about it. You seem like the kind of person that would have like always carry a toothpick with you, MacGyver.
One that we do, a lot of people in Alaska do that I don't see people in the 48 do as often, is just tape your gun barrel off. So you just tape the muzzle. I'm gonna use this. Obviously, we don't really carry these up in Alaska. It's just a fun. This is my fidget spinner, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm stressed, but it's unloaded. Nothing's in the cylinder. You just take a piece of electrical tape and you cross it this way and you cross it that way, and then you take it and wrap it twice. Why you do that is if any silt, debris, sticks, mud, muck, anything, it prevents that from getting in there. So then if a bear does charge, you need to shoot it. It's not gonna blow up in your face because you closed off at least that one fail point.
Yeah.
That's a very handy trick that I don't see a lot of people in the 48 do.
Okay, that's a good one to know. I'm gonna have to do that. Okay, well, I want to be respectful of your evening. We've covered a lot, and I don't want to glaze over anything. But I know that you said that you've failed a lot, you've had a lot of good success, you've come a long ways. In all of the things that we've talked about, is there anything where you're like, man, I don't share this a lot. It's really important to me. I'd love to get it out there. Here's a chance.
Yeah, we touched kind of on the mental health thing, so I guess I'll go down that, and I won't use anybody's names for privacy for the family. But I had a good buddy commit suicide 2020, fall 2020, and if you in that situation, you thinking those thoughts, a thought that comes to mind is everything has an expiration date, good times and bad times. So if you're in bad times, eventually this too shall pass. So keeping that in mind, in anything. So let's just say hunting. Over the fall, I did a lot of doll sheep hunting, caribou hunting, grizzly bear hunting. So I went on this sheep hunt, solo sheep hunt, killed a sheep. I'm carrying out a 200-pound pack. My legs are burning. I'm having to go up this more or less borderline cliff because off this side is no man's land, like where you're gonna die. And I say cliff, it's just a real steep extent with loose rock. It's a pain in the ass. And you're going up it, and I end up cutting my hand open. And in that moment, you start having what's called weak thoughts, and you're like, oh, I wish I could just quit. I wish I could go home. You can't. You got to push through that hard moment because that will pass too if you get through it, and you just keep going. So I would say that's a big one. Is like when really hard times come, and they will come. You can't avoid them. Everyone has them. You got to figure out a way to get through it and find friends. And I know it's easier said than done because my good friend it was hard because after the fact, all of our friend group was kind of similar. After the fact, after he committed suicide, I was the only buddy that he talked to briefly about it, that he was feeling depressed. And then what I told him was tuck your chin and get through it. Because I'm rationalizing it in my mind. So hard times come, tuck your chin, get through it. And obviously he didn't. He tapped out. So that kind of struggled with me for a little bit, on knowing that I should have figured out how to delegate more time because we were both really busy. Both were guides, so we were separate areas. So and later on, so that happened, and we left, and I was gone for like a month and a half, and then we re-linked up for a little bit, and I was like, "Hey, punch him in the arm," and he would always punch me in the arm. And I was like, "Hey, dude, are you good?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm good." And I could tell it was bullshit. Like I just see right there, it is bullshit, and I didn't say anything. So I think where I'm going with all this is if someone that you love tells you something that you know is bullshit, don't let that string slide. Pull that string. I should have hopped on him, like beat the shit out of him. I put him in a chokehold. Like, listen here, you're gonna talk to me, or I'm gonna choke you out, and then I'm gonna let you wake up, and I'm gonna choke you out again. Like obviously I'm being dramatic, but when those things happen, and something's going on, pull that string. Don't just let it slide because you might not get another chance to do that. So, yeah, I think that's something I don't talk about much, but think about often.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing, man. I'm sorry about your buddy.
I appreciate the thoughts. If anybody listening wants to pray for his family, it happened a long time ago, but he had a young daughter that was 11, 12. So I'm sure she would appreciate it. So,
Okay. Well, what else, man? What else is weighing on you this evening?
Weighing on me, I would say just personally wise would be you never want to fail, and you don't want to let people down. And there's a lot of people that need a lot of things, and trying to meet all those needs all the time get tiring, but at the same time it's part of it. So I'm trying to articulate that because that's not something I usually talk about. It's weird, I don't talk about my emotions very often. I just keep them in there because I don't know, there's I'm trying to think how to articulate this because I've never articulated it to anyone. But I think there is a little bit, because I'm going to slightly contradict myself. But as a man that, like, I'm not depressed, I don't feel those thoughts. I as of right now, not saying I won't ever will, but I don't think I will. Is I don't feel like I need to put my emotions on anybody else, and I keep it as a closed can usually.
Sure.
Like if I have an emotion that I think can help someone, then I'll articulate that story. But as for like what I'm going through on a regular basis, I keep that pretty close. Like my girlfriend, it drives her crazy. Like I'm like, yeah, it's going good. And she's like, you always say it's going good or great or fantastic. Like, is it never going bad for you? It's like, yeah, there's bad days, but I don't need to talk about them. Like I don't need to put my bad day on you. And that's just the way I look at it. Is kind of, I would call it what's called a John Wayne mentality, that you just grit through it. So I'm not saying that's what everyone should do. That's just kind of how I look at doing it, is not putting my day in and day out problems on anybody else. But on that same note, again, contradicting myself, if you need help and you're going through things, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that because of the story I just told you. If you feeling those bad thoughts, and you people care, like I care. You want to come talk to me? Shoot me up on Instagram, call me, whatever you need to do. My number's out there if you Google my website. So there's a little bit of a contradiction there, but that's how I handle it.
Yeah.
Myself.
No, that's fair. There's no wrong answer, I think. for how people should handle or would like to handle themselves, right? If holding it in is what works for you and makes you happy, who am I to say otherwise? But if you're not happy, you're responsible for getting the help you need.
Absolutely. And like I said, there's a lot of good people out there that truly care about you. Like, even if you feel alone, like I might have never met you, but I care about you. And I'm sure you feel the same. It's like if someone's listening to that feels like that, reach out to us because people love you. And that, let's just say hypothetically, taking your own life, that's never the answer. Because there's gonna be people like my buddy. Obviously, he felt like in that moment that was the answer. He left a mess in his wake. I love the guy to death. I think about him often, but what he did in that moment was the most selfish thing that he could do ever. He thought it was helping him because everyone around him, because for whatever reason he was feeling like it was better if he was gone, but it wasn't. So if you feeling that, trust me, no matter how alone you think you are or how worthless you feel you are, you're not. There's a lot of people that will be negatively impacted by you making that choice. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Okay. Well, I appreciate you, man. If we're to plug your website and your Instagram, what are people looking for you?
yeah, if people want to check out what I got going on, they can type in Rise Up with Caleb with a C. And then if they want to Google my name, it's Caleb Stillians. That's spelled Caleb. Stillians is Stillians. And that will pop up the show, the website, etc. Some exciting things that are coming down the pike that entrepreneurial spirit. I have a company called Tapity. It's an e-business card. You can share your information. You can share your business information. There's a lot of software management tools behind that. Another one that's coming down the pike is called Outfitter Services. Think of it as a way to connect with outfitters and outfitters to connect with you, similar to a booking company, but with a lot more features where you can reach out to those people. You can get gear list. You can find the hunts. And yeah, so I'm super excited about that. The website's not up yet, but you can go on Instagram and follow the page and stay in tune with it, or drop us your email, and that's outfitter.services.
Okay. I'll get those all linked in the episode description as well. So that way you don't have to write her down.
I appreciate that, so.
Okay. Well, man, I appreciate you. We'll have to get together in a couple of months after you've lived some crazy stories and swap some tales.
Absolutely. You let me know when. I got a big old suitcase of stories that is itching to get out.
Perfect. All right, man. Well, I won't keep you this evening, but we'll stay in touch. And I'll chat you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, so.
Caleb, once again, man, thanks for taking the time to sit down with me. Everybody listening, I hope you took some good information away and feel maybe a little excited, capable, or educated enough to go reach out to somebody should you need it, kind of alluding to the last little bit of our conversation. Nevertheless, I hope you all have a wonderful week, and we will catch you next time.